scenario planning and what we've configured within the Oracle environment. I'll just briefly, if you go a little bit further, Corey, into the agenda, I'm going to just give you a brief intro and then talk about some of the challenges related to professional service firms, and we're going to dive right into the product. So if we get started, Corey. So Frontera, who we are, we've been in business for over 20 years. We've done hundreds of cloud implementations in over 40 countries. But for us, we've really made a commitment to the professional service market, and that's tied to EPM and ERP. EPM is what we're covering a part of it today, which is scenario planning, and also ERP. We've configured Oracle to handle professional service billing, for law firms, trust accounting, all the analytics and the dashboards, and everything that's specific for a professional service firm. We're sitting on the chair of Oracle's Cloud Partner Advisory Board. So a little bit, we'll continue on, Corey. So bottom line, organizations need an understanding of their exposure, during this current environment to be able to plan a viable strategy. COVID's introduced a lot of extreme uncertainty and disruption this year, as all of you know, and made agility critical in the short-run forecasting process for firms to be able to retool and manage their operations. So the challenges, that firms are faced with, if you go a little further, Corey, is, for law firms, there's been court closures and continuances. For other professional service firms, there's been stalled transactions, along with payment delays, and a lot of decrease in new business. Client retention, if you look at outside counsel spending, over the last couple of years, it's become somewhat flat. So it's really important for firms to be able to maintain their existing clients. So scenario modeling, go on, Corey. You really need a financial planning solution that can effectively perform scenario modeling. Professional service firms need really a new approach to financial planning, one that informs rapid realignment of plans, actions, and ensures organizational resilience. To be able to look at a range of possible outcomes. A lot of firms are turning to scenario modeling and rolling forecasts as a more effective tool to deal with unforeseen levels of short-term uncertainty. However, because of the lack of tools, these scenarios are usually manually built using Excel. But one thing I read that I found interesting is that Gartner did a survey of 99 CFOs early in the summer of this year, and 42% of those CFOs have not incorporated a second wave outbreak of COVID in their financial scenarios they're building for the remainder of 2020. So you go a little further, Corey. So what is scenario planning? It's to be able to pivot scenarios and to be able to compare them side by side. With that, there's our Monte Carlo simulator that can perform 500 simulations concurrently to determine what the probability is of hitting your targets. There's consolidation. So, for example, if I'm a regional firm in the U.S., I might say, okay, the Northeast is doing somewhat good, so I would think that let's look at best case scenario of hitting our targets. But in the South or in specific cities, in the U.S., they're struggling a bit with COVID. So we should probably look at worst case. And then what it does, it allows you to consolidate and roll up and look at it at the firm level. Now, to be able to do that using an Excel spreadsheet or multiple Excel spreadsheets would be virtually impossible. Another thing too is that, Gartner also ranked this as the #1 planning tool on the market, which is also really important, showing the strength of our solution. But what we've done is we focus on key critical drivers for a professional service firm. So we looked at utilization rates to look at what was worked and what was actually billed based on the percentage. Of course, profitability, and that's profitability at the firm level, drilling down, looking at the office level, practice group level, professional level, and even right down to the matter project level. We also factored in realization rates. What was the value when it was worked and compared to what was value when the cash finally came in the door. We look at revenue, productivity, are your attorneys or managers or partners hitting their targets? And then, of course, lockup. How long is it taking you to bill your WIP, and how long is it taking you to collect on your bills? And all these are built right into our scenarios. So that's about it. So Corey, from my end, I'm going to pass it over to Corey, and he can dive right into the application.
Okay, thank you, Jake. So we're going to jump in the application, but first talk about some of our objectives that we plan to cover. We want to focus on how scenario planning can help your firm. So whether you're currently using Excel, this is going to show you how we can better improve your process. You could still actually use Excel with the tool, but with parameters. We're going to help you hopefully recognize the role of finance and other lines of business in scenario planning as we look at there's a consolidation portion of this, and then talk about some best practices and hopefully give you a high-level understanding of the functionality within scenario planning. Our fictional firm that we're going to use as a model is basically they're going to try and determine the required realization rates to meet their goal of 21 million pounds in revenue. We're going to analyze, like Jake mentioned, the Monte Carlo simulation. We'll actually run through 500 different scenarios to determine the probability of reaching that goal. And then lastly, the last two components is really around reporting and analysis, where we'll look at a comparison report, and then you'll see, the other part of the tool that we won't be covering in the demo, but there is the planning, your typical planning and forecasting that this scenario planning piece will drive your bottom-up process. Give me a second here. So what we're looking at right now is the actual application through the web. There is a model consolidation page. So within this consolidation page, I'll collapse North America so you can see Europe here. So within the consolidation page, you would set up your structures and represent how you consolidate across scenarios within the models to support your business case. You'll notice up at the top here, we have a business case that we've defined as COVID-19. Obviously, that's on everyone's mind. But within, as you begin to plan across multiple different parts of your organization, or in this case, practice area, this tool allows you to incorporate different scenarios from different areas of practice into your model to show how it will affect the parent company earnings and value. So here we have, within London, we've created these three practice areas: litigation services, commercial litigation, asset finance. If commercial litigation, due to COVID, they realize it's going to be, not as profitable this year, they would forecast or plan a worst case scenario. Litigation services, on the main hand, may have a best case scenario, and then basically when we run our consolidation, that rolls up into the London office, which ultimately affects the United Kingdom, which ultimately has an impact on overall Europe and the global organization. So think of all the manual Excel linking that would have to be done to run the different consolidations that you can set up in seconds, because creating these models, it's not a long, lengthy process. It's really a matter of seconds. And then also there's no IT budget. no IT involved in setting this up. All this is empowering the business to quickly deploy and create multiple scenarios to support different business cases. So I'm going to go here now and look at my strategic forecast for my litigation services. So what we're looking at now is basically a data form that's capturing, in this case, I have a drop down at the top of the page, point of views, that allow me to quickly toggle between different scenarios. So we're talking about what if scenario planning. We'll have a best case, worst case, likely case. I can quickly create different versions of that. Ultimately, like we saw in the consolidation, I can incorporate that into our overall business case. The form here is also, we've grouped them by account groups. So if I'm focusing in this case, like Jake mentioned, we have some key drivers from a legal perspective that are typically associated with what's going to drive our fee revenue or fees earned. If I select my operating activity, I will then get all of my accounts that affect my operating activity, so any expense activity. You also notice that there's some areas that are highlighted or displayed in a blue font. So basically these are your input areas. And here I have my productivity and realization defined as a growth rate. So if I say, hey, in June, it wasn't as bad as we thought for our realization, I think it's going to be, only decreased by 2% instead of 5%. I go ahead and input the 2%, I save it, run a quick calculation, and then it's going to update my realization rate. So anything that you see highlighted in yellow, it's what's been updated. So now my realization rate has been adjusted, which then ultimately drives my fees earned, which has an impact on my total revenue, my earnings, and then obviously my net income. The other piece of it, this is, so you have that driver-based scenario planning. When we talk about whether it's scenario planning, bottom-up planning, forecast planning, driver-based, trend-based information is basically, it's key. It's a best practice because you standardize your overall organizational plans, forecasts. Everyone's creating their plans based on the same formula and structure. One of the other features here is you have goal seek. So this is going to tell me if I, just a second. So with goal seek, just a second, sorry, my browser. Goal seek is basically going to say, hey, with your 17 million here, is this going to, how is this going to affect, if I want to, with goal seek, I can set a target. So in this case, I want to set a, let's go with a target of 19 million. I want to see what's going to be my realization rate based on that 19 million, what it needs to be, so that I click select here. I do my start period, say I want to start it in September, and then end period, I want to see what my realization rate should be for September through November. So that was a little bit too high apparently, so pardon me. So let's try this again, goal seek. That's our realization rate. That's our start period. It's telling me that my goal seek is incorrect. Bear with me just a minute.
It's okay, Corey. You can move.
Yeah.
You can move on to simulation.
So, yep. So simulation. This is going to tell me my profitability for. So here I want to see my probability of reaching 17 million. I run through this simulation. It's going to go through and it's going to calculate what is the probability of reaching that 17 million. While this is running, you'll see here in Excel, I still have the ability to access everything that I have in the web through Excel. I've opened up this litigation services model as an Excel, as a copy in Excel. So you see I still get the same information here from my key drivers, account view. I can toggle between each one with my also up here at the menu option. I can create a report. I can submit data. I can calculate data based on the different formulas. I can add dimensions. I can create new account groups. So everything that you're seeing through the web, you can continue to access in Excel. You'll see here that the Monte Carlo is running through 500 different trials. It's going to give me the certainty of reaching my goal that I have for the 17 million, and it looks like it's probably going to give me a 51% chance of meeting that goal. This is good for just confirming what you're planning, what you're setting your assumptions at, what you're setting your goals to be. Once I'm done with that, I can come in and do a comparison, scenario comparison. This is a report that we built within the application. So here I have my total revenue, my total expenses, and my net income up at the top. And then I have basically a graph that shows me the different pieces for my comparison. Once I'm satisfied with what I've done, I can then submit that scenario to the overall business case and run my consolidations at a global level. Once that's been done, we can push the data over into the planning application where you'll have additional dashboards. And you'll see here, I have my best case. In this case, I rolled everything up to EMEA, but if I wanted to just go back to the United Kingdom, in this case, my data gets updated and refreshed based on my selection. I have the ability as well to select the different scenarios so that I can do some comparison and then begin working on my my plan and my forecast moving forward. So from an application perspective, we have top-down planning. So a lot of organizations focus more on building your plans from a bottom-up. This allows you to have a tool to have your scenario, your overall strategic plan, your business case information drive your plans, your forecast. You also want to focus on high-level driver base. If you notice in the tool, everything that we did was more at an account level, not at a high-level driver base. So leveraging formulas, leveraging growth rates. You also want to limit the number of scenarios to typically around 4. If you're doing more than 4, then you're really spending too much time, and it's not. You're not going to gain a lot out of having more than 4 different scenarios. Obviously, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but we've built this with the legal industry in mind to hopefully grab some of the key drivers and metrics that are relevant for your organization. You also have crisis planning, obviously, if we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it should be shorter term focus, but you also want to, as Jake mentioned, begin to think about, okay, how are we going to come out of this? What are going to be sort of long-term lasting effects? Obviously, you want to plan for that piece of it as well, and then continue to revisit it, as things change. So yeah, in today's rapidly changing environment, the COVID has, changed our market, changed businesses on a daily. You want to be able to predict out, have a tool that allows you to quickly and effectively predict out, where you'll be, a week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, that you don't necessarily get out of Excel. Excel is very manual. This tool is very powerful. You want to use a cloud-based scenario modeling software that is fundamental in enabling you to monitor and navigate this crisis and other crises effectively. That's why we recommend or say, hey, let's use the power of Oracle and experience of Frontera to start your scenario modeling today.
Great. Thanks, Corey.
Yep.
And thanks, everyone. We'll follow up with you just to make sure you have some of the supporting details based on what we covered today. But we'll let you get back to work, and we thank you for your time and appreciate the opportunity to introduce you to what we've done with our global practice management solution and scenario planning. Again, thanks, Corey.